Cheerful, lively, full of fun, the familiar house sparrow has many friends, but amongst themselves they can be noisy and quarrelsome. For many people, house sparrows are pretty ordinary birds. The truth is that they can be very special.
Right! Yes! Yes! Right! Stand down!
Perhaps most special of all are those that live at Buckingham Palace. The changing of the guard is meant to be an eye-catcher. It's hardly surprising that not one tourist has noticed the sparrows. The sparrows stay when most birds would have fled. It's midsummer at St James's. Already this pair have their second brood of youngsters. A well-grown chick that will soon be on the wing. We look at sparrows when it suits us, but they never lose sight of people. For most sparrows, survival and success depends on us. These sparrows are part of a population that feed and live in and around St James's Park. Here, perhaps more than anywhere else, it's possible to see that there's a very special relationship between modern man and the house sparrow. It's an association that began around 10,000 years ago, when man first reaped his crops of grain. The seeds ripen when most sparrows have finished breeding. Flocks head for the nearest fields, usually within 3 to 4 kilometers of the breeding colony. Here they feast on a super crop, wheat, with seeds far bigger and more succulent than the original wild grass first cultivated by man. The modern sparrow is cashing in on the benefits of today's agriculture. These invasions can cause serious damage. Occasionally up to a third of the crop is lost, and it doesn't stop there. Later in the year, the sparrows find a really luxurious food. In the cow trough, there's a mix of crushed grain and silage fortified with vitamins. What more could a hungry sparrow ask for? It's hardly surprising that some farmers are not friendly to sparrows. And if you feed in a flock, you attract the attention of others. Although sparrows are more obvious in flocks, the kestrel may be confused by the blur of wings. There's also safety in numbers. Even so, kestrels, as well as sparrowhawks and owls, are predators on sparrows. When food is hard to find, some individuals adopt a different behavior. They watch other birds. When one discovers food, the watcher, or scrounger, moves in and takes advantage of the find. So flocking has several functions, all important to the survival of sparrows. During winter, some flocks will disperse, but they may still gather together at dusk in communal roosts. Each can contain either tens or thousands of birds. The sparrows of St James's have spent their winter in town. They rarely stray far from the park. The vigorous new growth of spring is an irresistible attraction to insects. A bee is a welcome and vital guest whose act of pollination is rewarded with nectar. That's if it can get there before the sparrow. Nectar shining on his bill, a brightly plumaged male plunders the flowers. The less decorative female joins in too. This male's technique is more destructive, but it's not wanton. He needs the food. This spring sweetener is a welcome addition to the regular diet of breadcrumbs. London's car parks offer an almost limitless supply. It's a favourite place to eat lunchtime snacks. Sparrows can rely on finding food here at all times of the year in almost any weather. But on fine days, there can be richer pickings elsewhere. After the nearby pubs close, the sparrows try to clear up before the barman. Bread rolls, quiche, butter and other delights are there for the taking. With such wholesome food available, it's perhaps a little surprising to find some sparrows digging around at the zoo. Elephants digest their food rather inefficiently. The grain and seeds they take in with their hay are delivered unscathed to the ground. Perhaps the ancestral sparrow of Central Africa fed like this more than 20 million years ago. But now, as then, a sparrow's priority in spring is to search for a nest site. Holes in stonework, gaps under roofs and other crevices are all investigated by the year-old males. The buildings around St James's offer plenty of opportunities. Older males have already returned to the site they used last year, but for young and old, song proclaims ownership. The male wins his female with a special sexual display that shows off his plumage. All this noisy strutting inevitably attracts attention and fights break out. This behaviour often occurs in the park, well away from the nest sites. But if the male is to succeed, he must persist. The female, nervous at first, ultimately accepts this male as a mate. Their nest site is a touch exclusive. It's on the mall. Our male has chosen to build his nest in one of the lampposts. At the very top, the cast-iron galleon provides an unusual but very desirable home. He will continue to proclaim his ownership, if only to keep other males away. But now that he has a mate, the pair of them will build up the nest that he started some days ago. A variety of vegetation is collected. The female here tugs at old stalks in a plane tree, but the male goes for grass gathered eagerly in the park. After only a few days, the nest takes shape. Although the female helps with the nest building, it's the male who does most of the work. Now he searches for softer materials. They're taken inside and pushed into position. The nest will be built with thousands of items collected in a frenzy of activity, but the sparrows seem tireless. The precision of their return flights to the nest is revealed best in slow motion. The domed nest is now almost complete. It's unusual to see a sparrow's nest in such an open situation where it will be vulnerable to exceptionally bad weather. Along the mall, several of these galleons are used by the sparrows. Usually, though, their nests are in more sheltered positions, but here it must be space that's at a premium. A squeeze to get in, but plenty of room inside. The stonemasons, too, have carved an ideal niche for the sparrows. Around the park, almost every building has somewhere for sparrows to nest. Without them knowing it, London's architects are a sparrow's best friend. Not far off in Regent's Park, the sparrows have taken to building in the base of herons' nests, a habit which raises no objection from the owners. But some sparrows still build in trees or bushes. This is probably how the ancestral sparrow nested and how their close relatives, the weaver birds of Africa, still do. Nesting in holes by house sparrows is thought to be a relatively recent habit. Back at the galleon, our pair are now mating more frequently. Soon the female will be ready to lay her eggs, but before that the nest needs a final touch, a lining of feathers. During this last burst of building activity, the pair will bring in at least 200 feathers. Again, it's usually the male who does most of the work. The down will make a snug bed for the eggs and for the young when they hatch. Feathers can be hard to find, so not one must be left behind. About 5 days later, the hen has completed her clutch. The eggs are laid in the early morning, one each day. 4 is the usual number. They will be incubated by both parents, but the female takes on the largest share. It's late May. The first warm days of summer have arrived. And it's not only we humans who take advantage of the sun. Our female, off duty, enjoys a bask. Sunning is an important part of the bird's feather care, but like us, they also find it very relaxing. A bout of preening usually follows. The sun's ultraviolet rays convert feather oil into vitamin D, some of which the birds will take in during preening. More commonly, though, preening is preceded by bathing in water. Once one starts, there's soon a crowd. Bathing is not a haphazard delight, but another vital part of feather care. The object is to thoroughly wet the feathers, not soak them, so that they can be preened more easily. First one end, then the other. Among the St James's Park sparrows, there are many non-breeders with no responsibilities. It's different for our pair, who will soon have no off-duty time to while away. After their 12-day vigil on the eggs, they now face a very active period. During the last 24 hours, all the eggs have hatched and feeding has begun. They will be brooded for well over half the day, but the tiny blind chicks respond to every movement of their mother by begging. Just 4 days later, and already the appearance of the chicks is changing. They're still blind, but their darker colour is caused by the feather tracts developing under the skin. It's not uncommon for 1 or 2 of the chicks to die. In our nest, only 1 has been lost. Day 6. With eyes now open, gapes are directed towards the parent. The young chicks are fed a variety of foods, but the most important part of the diet at this stage is insects, including aphids, flies and caterpillars. The adults search industriously. They seek them out in the overgrown corners of nearby gardens and on Duck Island in the Park Lake. This protein-rich animal food will encourage the healthy growth of the chicks. With up to 25 feeds per hour, both parents are busy. Fine weather helps them to keep up the high foraging rate. 8 days old and with appetites bigger than ever. Bread now becomes a more important item in the diet. In St James's Park, it's certainly the easiest food to find. With such handouts, it's no trouble for the parents to satisfy their ever-demanding chicks. These chicks are lucky, for down in the park they're being offered not just bread, but biscuits, preferably digestive, and budgie mix. And it's fun for us too. Fun it may be, but not for this sparrow. Watch her aggressive gesture. There, as she keeps away another. And again. No doubt she has a brood to feed like ours. The neat white parcel on the rim of the nest hole is a dropping placed there by one of the nestlings. And so the nest is kept clean. Towards the end of their time in the nest, the chicks are fed less, but with feathers well grown, stretching and preening will take up a lot of each day. Day 16. This is perhaps the last feed in the galleon on the Mall. Tomorrow, the nest will be empty. Down below, it's a hazardous place for a young sparrow. Not so much from us, but our cars. They are the main cause of accidental death of sparrows, particularly the inexperienced youngsters. But our chicks are fit and strong. The 100-metre flight down to the lake will be a piece of cake. Safely installed in the bushes, the fledglings wait for a parent to appear with food. Begging motions entice the parent to deliver. During the next few days, the young birds will slowly gain confidence and start to feed for themselves. But until their parents disappear to start their second clutch, all offers of food are gratefully accepted. After 2 weeks or so, the protected life with their parents is over. Now they will join a flock of juveniles and older sparrows and take part in social activities, like dusting. This is another kind of bathing, but hardly one to cleanse, you might think. Each sparrow claims its own dust bowl. Disputes over favourite bowls are frequent. It's probable that this behaviour stirs up the tiny feather parasites that all sparrows carry. Dusting is usually followed by energetic preening, which rids them of some of the mites and lice. Now fully independent, this juvenile will roam St James's Park in the months ahead, if it's lucky. Only about a fifth of those fledged 1 year will survive to the next. But there will be survivors, those which search out and take the opportunities that are offered. For these juveniles, of course, there will always be plenty of breadcrumbs. But for now, they've discovered a natural bonanza, aphids. It's a sight that should please the eyes of any rose grower. Here at St James's, the sparrows are not short of friends, but it's different for their country cousins. They are pests, feeding on farm crops just 20 kilometres away. But whatever your feelings, pest or pal, the house sparrow, with its resourcefulness and adaptability, is one of the most incredible successes of the bird world. And with its cheerful, if cheeky nature, it's a success with most of us too.
Shame, sparrows can't sing. Think of the joy sparrows might bring, but all they can do is fly in the sky and fly and fly and fly.
Next Thursday, Wildlife on One samples the nightlife of the English countryside. That's at 8 o'clock.